visit earthgoddessadornments.com. This is not just jewelry. Each piece is handmade with genuine crystals, created for women who carry divine energy, beauty, and power. No two pieces are ever the same, because no two goddesses are the same. Every crystal is intentionally chosen to enhance your aura and elevate your spiritual vibration. This is spiritual adornment that meets class, beauty, and a bold modern edge, designed to move effortlessly from ritual to real life. Visit earthgoddessadornments.com and get your unique piece today. Hey, what's going on, Chosen? This is chhaviZaine, and I'm coming on to bring a message for you all. I definitely wanted to discuss this with you because I have received a lot of spiritual downloads in regards to this, especially over the years that I have been doing personal readings for others, as well as my own personal experience. I've noticed a particular phenomenon. And what my spiritual team downloaded in my spirit is that it's called the copycat timeline. And this copycat timeline phenomenon is a spiritual overlap where karmic soulmates and divine unions temporarily appear to walk the same path. This isn't accidental, and it's not a punishment, but it's actually a discernment test. When someone reaches a particular crossroads in their evolution, there's certain unresolved energies, like karmic energies, that are aligned on their pathway here. And it can momentarily mirror each other, okay? Karmic timelines and divine timelines, like for a temporary period, they begin to mimic each other so closely that on the surface, they look almost identical, okay? So this is why the signs can get a little bit muddled in a way where, it could be something like where both people end up living out of state. Both people, the karmic and the divine partner, they live out of state. Both of them suddenly go quiet on you. Or both of them might suddenly appear spiritual. Both of them could be triggering some sort of emotional response or emotional intensity. So sometimes when you watch tarot readings, especially general readings or collective messages, they work. It's like they're picking up on a certain type of energy, right? They're not we don't tap into names, we don't tap into faces, but the messages can apply to both connections at the same time. But this is where the confusion sets in. So from the outside, the path can look the same. If you're only looking through your natural eyes, the path can look the same. But from inside, the internal energy is not the same. Your soul recognizes the difference between the two, but your human nature may have a struggle. You might struggle with that, okay? So this is how the copycat energy works. The karmic connections are rooted in lower chakra energy, okay? Lower chakra dynamics, such as you might have certain attachments to that person. You might fear loss, or you might feel like you have unfinished business. There could be like power struggles, guilt, trauma bonding. You might feel a sense of obligation to that karmic person. But when that karmic, let's say when the karmic feels that you are beginning to awaken, the energy can like subconsciously begin to mimic the divine path or the divine partner's energy in order to regain control or relevance in your life. So it's like subconsciously they start to feel a pull, a detachment that's happening for you because you're beginning to awaken. So they might start to like mimic or start to become a copycat to what they know your soul desires in order to keep you stuck on the karmic loop with them. Okay, keep that in mind. So they might suddenly appear spiritual, but it can, the work, whatever they're doing, like let's just say they start doing some form of spiritual work, it'll feel performative or like ego driven, right? You'll be able to feel that from them. They could end up mirroring circumstances of the divine counterpart, where like if you are dealing with some sort of distance from your divine counterpart, then you'll have distance with the karmic partner. If you are not communicating with your divine counterpart, you may not be communicating with your divine partner. And even timelines can merge in a way where it's happening simultaneously at the same time. So this is why you don't want to get confused when you're listening to general messages. Because a lot of times you'll be like, well, hold on, that sounds like what's going on with, the karmic person that you're dealing with, but it's also going on with the divine person that either you're hoping to align with or that you have already crossed paths with. So that's where you want to use discernment. So also consider that the karmic energies, they can like trigger anxiety, obsession, overthinking, or a need for reassurance in some way. So this will keep you like mentally looping instead of expanding. So you'll constantly be on this cycle of groping and reaching for something that you're not supposed to be focused on. Like your attention is literally being distracted when you are connecting with the karmic energy. So this is the illusion. And it can live in the mind. It can live in the nervous system. And it's going to pull you into this downward confusion instead of upward into this expansion of clarity and growth. So what makes a divine union different, even when it looks the same, is that a divine connection is going to operate through the higher chakras. Okay? So your heart chakra, your throat, third eye, and your crown chakra. So even if there's distance or silent, the energy is going to feel very different. Very, very different. It doesn't hijack your peace. You're not going to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to require constant like decoding of the energy where you're just trying to figure it out. And it doesn't make you chase. Okay? It's not going to make you chase the energy. It's something that you're just going to feel naturally drawn to, but you're not going to feel like you have to chase it. So this energy is supposed to activate your growth, okay? It's supposed to activate your awakening. The divine counterpart energy is going to activate your growth, activate your awakening, rather than creating emotional chaos. The karmic energy is going to create the emotional chaos. The divine energy is going to trigger and activate growth. So you're going to expect that your sense of expansiveness, okay, is going to grow. It's not going to shrink. It's going to grow. Also, a key difference is that divine energy, it clarifies over time. So it's going to reveal and expose itself over time. Whereas karmic energy is going to become more and more confusing over time. Divine energy is going to reveal itself, just like, it said, the truth stands in its own merit. Whereas karmic energy is going to become more and more chaotic and confusing. That's another way that you will be able to discern the two. If it keeps you spinning, doubting, or like doubting your own intuition, that's not divine alignment. That's attachment. That's trauma bonding. So a lot of times the energy of mimicking the karmic mimicking the divine union or the divine partner, this happens to keep you at a crossroads. Okay, this is the reason why this is happening. It happens to keep you at a crossroads here. So the reality begins to like merge into each other, where it's hard to separate one from the other. So multiple timelines begin to stack. on top of each other. And it's like, hold on, is this, will the real divine partner please stand up? That's the type of energy that you'll be in, right? So everything starts to feel like it's overlapping, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But this is not the Most High Mother and Father trying to trick you. Okay, please understand that. It's not to try and trick you. What they're doing is asking you to stop looking at things through your natural eyes and to start relying on your internal validation, not external validation, but internal validation. That's why the divine unions strongly, you're operating with those upper chakras, as I mentioned before, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. You're going to feel divine alignment. You're going to feel more expansive. You're going to feel more awakened from aligning with that person. Whereas the karmic energy operates with you. You're going to be operating in your lower chakras through ego, pride, obsession, possessiveness, insecurities, jealousy, lust, greed, materialism. So the Most High Mother and Father allows this to unfold so that you could start to rise into your divinity and connect more with your spiritual nature, and to not be so fixed in the illusions of the matrix, because the karmics are the pawns for the powers that were, that assist in keeping the illusions playing out for you so that you can stay on this copycat timeline or this karmic loop. So keep that in mind. So also, the way to exit this energy is through like your heart chakra discernment. What does your heart tell you? What is your heart chakra telling you? The way out of this copycat timeline is not logic. It's not going to feel practical. It's not going to feel like it makes sense in the 3D realm. Okay? So it's going to be very tempting to cling to these karmic connections, because let's just say you're connected to a karmic connection. Like I said, you're functioning in your lower chakras. So your pride and ego may not allow you to disconnect from that person, because your material security could be heavily weighed on that connection. Your notoriety could be heavily weighed on that connection. Your lust and certain addictive patterns or unhealthy desires could be heavily connected to that connection. So those lower chakras are wanting to, it's like that karmic energy wants to stay put within you. It's like it clings to you in a way where it's afraid that when you detach and start operating from the upper chakras, that now the matrix no longer holds a vice grip on your energy. The powers that were no longer hold a vice grip on your energy. So those cord attachments to the beast of Babylon, you will no longer be an energetic supply. So a lot of times those karmic connections will mimic the divine connections for that very reason. So the Most High Mother and Father wants you to get into the habit of operating from your heart space. What does your heart feel? Are you evolving? That's how you're going to know. Are you awakening with a divine partner? That's how you're going to know. Are you being called to step out on blind faith and to do things that you have never done, to do away with the ego, to do away with certain toxic relationships, to do away with certain patterns and certain notoriety and things like that that's connected to the karmic in order to align with your divine partner? More than likely, that's going to be the case. This is how you know that you are shifting timelines and moving towards your divine path. So you want to listen to your heart. Okay? Listen to your heart. What is causing expansion versus what's draining you? Karmic energy drains you. Divine energy expands you. Also, being very clear with when you're looking at the upper chakras, your throat chakra. Are you able to speak openly? Really recognizing, like, what are you afraid to admit? Do you have certain things that you're afraid to admit or that you're afraid to say? That's another way to recognize. Trusting your third eye. We're talking about trusting your spiritual eyes, trusting your discernment. What are you seeing? What is your inner knowing without any proof, without any direct physical evidence? So you're likely going to see a lot of signs and synchronicities Your spiritual team will point you in the direction of your divine partner. It's going to feel very supernatural, very spiritual, very mystical. And you're being called to trust that what you are seeing with your spiritual eyes is, in fact, the roadmap towards your divine union and your divine mission. Not your natural eyes, because they will fool you, your spiritual eyes. And then when we're looking at the crown chakra, this is all about guidance. It's going to feel calm. It's going to feel balanced. We're talking about faith when we're looking at the crown chakra energy. What spiritual downloads are you receiving when you connect with your divine partner? When you're connecting with your divine partner, your spiritual download should be at an all-time high. They should be coming in like you losing sleep at night because you're receiving such a floodgate of information that's divine information. That's how you also know that you have connected with your divine partner. So just understand, it's like if something requires like constant interpretation, where you constantly have to ask questions like, is this person right for me? Do they have my right intentions? Do they really care about me? Are they really jealous of me? If you really have to constantly question if somebody is trying to manipulate you, then that is not a divine counterpart. That's a karmic energy. Divine energy, you just know it. It's a knowing that's undeniable. So this is a portion of what has been downloaded to me. Now, I also want to share a little bit more with you all. If you're still here, press the like button, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let me know if you have experienced this yourself. So I also want to discuss how this karmic loop is being used as a distraction or as a weapon against the chosen seed, y'all. Okay, many of you know I've spoken about the powers that were, the beast of Babylon, on many different occasions. So staying on this karmic loop or this copycat timeline, what's being revealed to me is that many of the karmic connections, they're not random. Okay, these connections are not random. They're not accidental. They are strategically positioned distractions, y'all. Strategically positioned distractions. These karmics, they're energetic pawns. They come in to siphon your energy. You might be consciously or subconsciously aware of this. They may be subconsciously or subconsciously aware of this, but it's happening to keep divine individuals locked into some sort of repetitive cycle that drains your awareness, chosen. Draining your awareness, to drain your energy, and to drain you from like having forward movement, to like hold you back from having forward movement here. So the goal is very easy to discern. It's meant to delay you from ascending. It's meant to delay you from coming into union. And it's meant to delay your awakening. These are things to understand. To delay your ascension, to delay you from coming into union with your person and your soul tribe, not just your divine union, but also your soul tribe, and to delay your awakening. So in the illusion, you know, in this matrix, there are many screenplays. Okay, the powers that were love to create movies. They love to create narratives and screenplays, okay? The television, tell lies to your vision, the media, the news, all of these things, lots of screenplays, lots of costumes, lots of role playing here, okay? So the illusion is the drama, the emotional push and pull with your energy. That energy that says, I have an unfinished story to complete with this karmic person or these karmic people. I have unfinished business that needs to be settled here. It's all one big screenplay, one big cinema, y'all. That's another thing to keep in mind. So this is going to keep the divine individual watching instead of moving. It's just a clear distraction. Keep you watching instead of taking action towards your divine mission. So as long as your attention is focused on a karmic connection, you're going to believe that there's still something that has to be resolved. There's still something that you need to learn. There's still something that you need to complete. But subconsciously, yes, you do have something to resolve. And that is fulfilling your divine mission. But the karmic becomes such a perfect distraction that you end up thinking that there's something that you're supposed to fulfill with them. That's not the case at all. Okay? So in reality, the lesson has already been learned. They come in, they bring a lot of karmic chaos, drama, trauma bonding, pain, and create a lot of wounds for you. So you end up going through a series of experiences that you are supposed to learn the lessons from and to move on from the energy. But again, it begins to mimic and copycat divine energy so that you end up ultimately becoming confused. Oh, is this person, are we supposed to go through this karmic cycle and then suddenly they rise into their divinity and we move on to our mission together? No, with those karmics, you are meant to learn the lesson, fulfill the karmic debt that they likely came in to trigger in this lifetime, heal, close the chapter, and move towards your divine union. Okay? So the lesson has already been learned. But what remains in place is the attachment. That's why you hear a lot about cord cutting. Okay? You definitely want to cut these contracts, cancel these contracts, cut the cords, cut the energetic soul ties, all of these things, because they're going to try to find something to cling to, even if it's hanging by a thread. Consider a spider's web is thinner than a thread. So you can still get trapped if you are connected even by a thread. Keep that in mind. Okay? So recognizing that karmic energy is going to feed on divine energy. We're talking about even when it comes to these systems that's created by the powers that were, the beast of Babylon, that karmic energy is fueled by divine chosen energy. That's why I always speak about you all being the generators of this system. As long as you are attached to karmic energy, karmic soulmates, karmic family, karmic friends, karmic belief systems, karmic contracts, then you are still a generator to the overall system, the overall matrix, and keeping it very much so alive and powered up, okay? So that's the truth that's unspoken. So a lot of karmics, they don't generate enough high frequency energy on their own. They don't have that divine connection to the Most High Mother and Father. So they cannot be a generator to the matrix. Only you can, chosen. You have that divine spark. You are the only one that can fuel the energy to keep it alive. The beast of Babylon feeds on divine energy. So these karmics do not have enough high frequency energy on their own, so they attach to divine individuals such as yourself. And this looks like people with intuition, very spiritually gifted, heart conscious beings, people that are led with their heart, people that have compassion, empathy. Okay? They typically attach to people like you, especially those of you who are healers, spiritual teachers, or you possess some sort of spiritual power. Yes, the chosen seed, y'all possess all of that. You're earth angels. So these karmics are going to attach themselves to you. And as long as the divine energy, you stay engaged with these individuals, the karmic receives protection from your energy. Okay, so this delays the consequences. It delays the karma. It delays them from receiving the judgment that has accumulated over years of choosing to be the pawn for the powers that were. So on a subconscious level, the karmics, they do recognize that they must like mirror divine energy in order to keep access to you. On a subconscious level, they know this. So when we go back to talking about mirroring that divine energy, they might even pretend or like come off like suddenly they're spiritual. Suddenly they have a spiritual calling, right? Suddenly they're a healer. Suddenly they recognize divine language. They might start speaking the part, looking the part, acting the part, but you recognize that there's something about it that's like, it feels like a play. It feels like role playing, okay? Your higher self recognizes that in this energy, but your lower self, your human nature, wants to believe that they in fact have evolved and that they have healed and that now y'all are getting ready to ride off into the sunset together, carrying out this divine mission. Not at all. Okay? So they're portraying this copycat energy. And consider, though, when they try to adopt this spiritual persona and they act like they have these divine values and they try to mimic, they try to act like they're growing, and they recreate circumstances that resemble alignment. This is where the copycat energy becomes a little bit distorted, okay? And that's why you have to use your spiritual discernment to be able to separate the real from the fake. But just know that divine energy, it does not look toxic at all. But when these copycats come in and they try to mimic divine energy, at first, it doesn't look toxic. At first, you're going to be like, dang, they really have healed. They really have done the work. It's not going to look for toxic. It's going to look familiar, though. So your soul is going to be like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been hoping to connect with. I've been hoping that they would wake up, that they would finally come into the realization that that's not the right path and that they need to heal and XYZ, right? So it's going to look spiritual. It's going to look like y'all are aligned with a destined connection, but it's never going to go anywhere. Because they're not going to be able to evolve past what they are expressing to you. They're going to likely align with some sort of spiritual mission that keeps them stagnant and stuck. It's not going to be a spiritual calling or a spiritual belief system that allows for expansion. So they're going to get caught up or wrapped up in some sort of like religious belief. There's many religions, but typically religions are legions, right? Religions are going to keep them reliving, replaying, redoing something without any true expansion. So that's another way of how you're going to be able to discern the real from the fake. So the loop is going to be built, this karmic loop is going to be built on repetition, not expansion. Repetition, not expansion. And considering the roles of the powers that were is they're going to need to like create some sort of systemic karma. Like they're going to need to recreate lifetime after lifetime of trying to come out of this karmic loop. So we're looking at their systems. We're looking at your bloodline. We're looking at generational traumas. Okay, some sort of energy that keeps recycling itself across generations. This is the play. This is the power play of the powers that were. So a fully divine being does not feed these corrupt timelines. Once you come into divine alignment and you remember who you are, there's no part of your energy that's going to feed these corrupt timelines. Instead, you're going to be doing everything in opposition to that. And that's why you become the rebel. That's why you become the black sheep. That's why you become the one that stands out, what some might consider the martyr, the one that's going to sacrifice everything in order to stand firmly in truth, to stand firmly in integrity, in divinity. Okay, so you're not going to mimic that energy. You will become the generational curse breaker. You're going to be the one out of the entire family or your immediate family or your friend group or a lot of the people around you in your community. You will be the one that decides to take the narrow pathway here. And so the powers that were, their agenda is to try to keep this repetitive karmic cycle going from one generation to the next. And that's why many of these karmics come in and they put on the costumes. The whole cinema, the movie is like, what do you call it? What do they say when they start a movie? Lights, camera, action. So it's like the moment that you're born into the world, showtime begins. And all of the karmics that's around you, they start to play out their role. And it's up to you as a chosen seed. The more that you grow, you're going to start to be able to discern the difference. But the key is to listen to what you feel, to listen to that divine, those divine downloads that's coming in that's saying, no, that's a wolf in sheep's clothing. No, I have to separate myself from that energy. No, I have to remove myself from that belief system or that particular lifestyle or those patterns or that friend group or whatever the case may be. You will have to constantly show yourself approved as a rebel to the matrix and the system of the powers that were. But that is the very thing that the powers that were, they don't want to see that happen, because the more chosen seed that cut those cords and disconnect from the beast of Babylon, the less generators they have, the less power they possess, and it begins to die. The entire system begins to die. So that's why these karmics must come in posing as divine beings, because it's the only way to keep you distracted and thinking that, okay, well, maybe I am taking the right path because this person is changing, they're growing, they're seeing things, they're awakening. No, don't be fooled. Okay? So what you're going to find is that the goal is to keep you fully invested in the movie, keep you fully invested in the cinema, keep you distracted on these karmic loops. Okay? So this is why you don't want to be fooled by the illusions and the spell casting of the powers that were. So when you come into divine alignment, this is the part that is very painful. This is the part that becomes a little bit chaotic on a journey. When you know that you're coming into divine alignment, you're going to align with your soul tribe. You're going to start to recognize the real versus the fake. You're going to start to see that you are definitely cut from a different cloth here. And so once you start to remove your energy, those karmics that was protected by your energy, their protection shuts off, because you're no longer there to be that light that mimics divine energy. So the karmic protection shuts off. And the karmics can no longer siphon your energy. They can no longer pose as being divine energy. So because the karmics can't pull on your energy, they are also feeding the beast of Babylon with your energy. Okay? When they siphon your energy, they're taking something from you. When they siphon your energy, they are draining something from you, draining that divine light. That is what's also being fed to the beast of Babylon. So a lot of the karma is going to start to pick up. Things are going to become very destabilized. Systems, illusions. Okay, all of this stuff is going to begin to crash. That's what we're seeing right now. Everything is crashing all around us, but the world that you have created, chosen, is certainly not crashing. Instead, you are aligning, you are moving up, you are expanding, because there's a division that's happening with these timelines. There's a division that's happening dimension-wise, okay? So you're going to start to see that the illusion begins to collapse. These systems begin to destabilize. And that's why you're going to find that there becomes like a lot of resistance. The karmics in your life start to push back really, really hard. They might start doing extremely petty things towards you, chosen. The system, the powers that were, they're going to start doing extremely crazy things because there's fear of losing that control. So you're going to pick up resistance because the system, the matrix, is going to start glitching without your energy. These low vibrational structures, whether it's the people, the relationships, institutions, they're going to all begin to decay very rapidly, because they cannot exist outside of the frequency of the chosen. They depend on you. They depend on divine energy. So when the divine energy continues to exist, the timeline and the entire karmic environment starts to self-destruct. Okay? When the divine energy comes into awakening within you, the whole timeline, the play, the whole mission of the powers that were begins to self-destruct. So you don't have to do anything directly except continue to rise into your divinity. Of course, many of you out there will be calling judgment. You'll be cutting contracts. You'll be cutting soul ties. You're going to be doing your part to break free from this matrix and to break free from the illusion. And as a result of you doing everything to become the highest version of yourself, everything else on that end, it self-destructs. It destroys itself. So you're going to notice that those karmics went from being extremely so-called spiritual to turning into outright devils, because that energy cannot sustain itself. Like I said, the truth stands in its own merit. Lies must expose itself. Lies must expose itself through these karmics. So the mask will begin to fall off. And it could be very painful, because you might look like, well, dang, how do you go from XYZ to this? And it could be very painful. But those triggers are going to trigger you into seeing the truth and accepting the truth, surrendering to the truth, so that you can now close that chapter and no longer be placed in a position where you will go from generation after generation, or timeline after timeline, or lifetime after lifetime, repeating the same karmic contracts with these individuals. You are jumping off of the karmic loop rather than remaining on it. So you're gonna see a split in timelines is what's going to happen here. And those who choose the truth, those who choose alignment and higher consciousness, you're going to move into this reality that's governed by a totally different energy, okay? Sovereignty, freedom, enlightenment, compassion, love, high vibrational energy. Like, you're going to experience a totally different timeline. Okay, it's going to feel like you're living in a totally different realm. And those who cling to control and deception and low vibrational energy, they're going to be stuck on the karmic cycle and remain in this, not only a loop, but a collapsing loop. Can you imagine being stuck in a loop that's just closing in on itself? So their energy is going to become smaller and smaller, and they're going to shrink more and more. The systems, the powers that were, these karmic energies, shrinking, staying on the karmic cycle, having to deal with the pain, but collapsing in on itself at the same time. And that's why you're going to look back and feel like it was a totally different timeline, feeling like you never knew these people, because you're going to be so far removed on a totally different dimension that it's just going to feel like, who are these people? What is this that I was stuck in? But it's going to be so plain that it was all one big screenplay. Okay? So just know that this whole system, this whole thing, the Most High, it's not personal. Okay? It's not personal. This is all happening for divine alignment. And once this split happens and that access is revoked here, the chosen seed, you're no longer going to share a space with these individuals. You'll no longer be protecting their energy. You'll no longer deal with these dimensional overlaps or these karmic individuals. The veil is going to be removed, and the play comes to an end. The movie comes to an end. Finally, the final chapter plays itself out, and all of it comes to an end, chosen. So just keep that in mind as you continue on your spiritual journey. That all of these illusions is created to keep you circling instead of ascending. Keep you cycling instead of ascending. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it, chosen. And when your divine energy is finally withdrawn from these karmics and from this system, everything built on distortion, on wickedness, on low vibrational karmic energy is going to collapse. You are literally here to shut this mess down. So I hope that this brought you all clarity. I just wanted to share that download with you. Like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to y'all next time. Visit chhaviZanesGuidance.com if you want to purchase any of the products that I have created. I have 6 different decks for you to choose from: Ancestors Money, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, and Madam C.J. Walker. I also have the Spiritual Cleanse, where you can cleanse your energy every time you take a shower. It consists of frankincense, myrrh, Palo Santos, and sage. You can also order my miniature altars. You can get my book full of channeled messages, and order your Straight Outta Religion hats and t-shirts. You can also get a 15-minute, 30-minute, or 1-hour session over the phone with me where you can ask as many questions as you'd like. So definitely check out the description box as well as the comment section to book your services and to purchase your products.